Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I'm Peter, that is Connor. This is our show where we talk about older movies, because we like to watch movies. And this episode is going to be about Dune, which is the David Lynch film from 1984. Science fiction based on the book by the same name. And this film's notorious. I'd never seen this before. Neither had Connor, but I've seen most of other David Lynch's other movies, so this is kind of an oddity that I've not seen this one. This movie's pretty notorious and infamous because it got heavily re-edited just before release. Lynch had a lot of problems working on it, and it's generally considered a bit of a mess. It's a sort of a fascinating failure. You know, how did it end up like this? What went wrong, kind of thing.
It's one of those where you want to know the story behind it.
So we watched the theatrical cut of this movie because there is an extended cut which originally aired on TV. It aired over 2 nights on TV, and it's been re-released in that form on DVD, Blu-ray, that kind of thing. But we went with the theatrical cut because we had the option. We made the choice because David Lynch disowned the other cut. He doesn't seem very proud of this one either, admittedly, but he actually took his name off the other one, and I believe he's credited as Alan Smithy.
Yeah, there is a big difference. Like you say, he's clearly not proud of this version, but it's acceptable enough that he left his name on it.
Yeah, and Alan Smithy, if you're not familiar with what that was, that it's not used now because everyone knows what it means. But there was a time when if a director wanted their name taken off a movie, they'd credit Alan Smithy as the director. It was a fake name. Of course, there's someone out there called Alan Smithy who wants to be a director who thought, I can't, because they're all just going to think
just laugh at you.
Someone's disowned the movie if I direct this. Actually, no, do you know what bet's happened? I bet one of the best directors in Hollywood is actually called Alan Smithy, but he picked a stage name because he knew if he kept that name, he would never be able to live it down.
You couldn't have that name in that industry.
No, you just can't. No. So yeah, we're going to talk about this, and we'll keep it spoiler-free for now. I will probably warn you before we get into sort of deep plot elements where we want to talk about spoilers. But we'll start off spoiler-free. So, Connor.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy Dune?
I'm not sure.
I did.
There's a lot that I do like, but then there are points where I can see where it's been slashed at, and it takes a lot away from it.
I liked it a lot, actually.
Okay.
I was mesmerised, as I typically am. No, it's not. I mean, it's David Lynch that made it, but it's not really a Lynch movie. It doesn't really feel like any of his other films. But I thought the visuals were beautiful. I thought the production value was great. It's got that old school everything, all these great matte paintings. It's got the all these different sets. I mean, there's a reason why it cost so much at the time and why it's seen as this giant flop. I thought the style was gorgeous. Filmed very well. I don't know. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not to say that I am unaware or I'm being ignorant of all of its problems. It has a ridiculous number of problems. The opening 5 minutes presented me with more exposition and character names, planet names, and just the way
organization names.
Yeah, like there was so much in the first few minutes that I was like, there's no way I could take all that in. Now, the gist of the movie became clear as it went on, and we got the whole idea that there was sort of these royal factions, and one was on one planet, one was on another. They control this other planet. It's Arrakis, which is also known as Dune, and the spice, which is the drug that fuels their space travel, is on there, and that's like the most sought after element and resource in the universe.
Yeah.
And the whole thing's a bit of a sort of kind of the Emperor's sort of goading on the villainous faction to assassinate the good faction because he's worried about them changing their methods
and
of the spice. What the spice is what it's called. That's the drug. It's the material that everyone wants.
It's weird because I almost think it would have worked better without so much exposition at the start. Because, like you say, you kind of get it as it goes along, and you don't take any of that in from the start anyway, because it bombards you with so much that if it had just kind of been stripped back a lot in that first few minutes and then just let you figure it out as it goes, it probably would have worked better.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that the dump at the start works. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the reason why you get it as it goes along is because you've heard it before and it's repetition.
See, I don't think it needed to be as much of a dump. I think you need some bits there at the start, but the way it's presented with every one of these names, like all the planet names, I don't think you really needed, because you get it as that you get that as you visit them. The same for the royal factions and like individually, like who they all are. Like it's too much detail at the start that you don't need. Strip it back a lot, and then give us the details as we learn them. And I think you'd have learned them just as well in terms of where you are at the end, and it wouldn't have felt like such a heavy dump at the start.
Possibly. I don't see. I think it's weird to look at it just on that on its own though, because it's indicative of a larger problem. Basically, the film is over 3 hours long. In fact, nearly 4 hours long. The original cut.
Yeah.
And they had to cut it down, and they had to reshoot several scenes to condense plot elements so that they'd be more concise. They added all this extra sort of narration, which there's a lot of that in the movie. There's a lot of like characters' thoughts that you hear as the movie's going on.
It's one of those things where it's clearly as it's a book adaptation, and you can see where on the page it was just characters having thoughts, and there was no dialogue for pages at a time, perhaps. And in the movie, they're like, well, we need speech. We need a way of expressing this. So they've just gone, we'll just do it in voiceover.
Yeah, but that wasn't originally there.
No, I know.
That was added later. That was added when they had to cut it down. So it's just, it gives it a really weird tone. It gives it this really weird feel to it. It's very different from any other big sci-fi movie that I've seen, and I kind of like it because of that. It's like a weird oddity. I like it in the sense that it's kind of a, because it is a mess, but it's a glorious mess.
I get that. Like, I really like the first act as long as it is, and it does feel like the first act of a much longer film. And then it gets to the second, and that's where it's cut down the most, apparently, in my opinion, where it just cuts thing to thing to thing.
It seems that way. You can't say for sure, but it seems that way.
No, but that's where it feels like a lot has been cut from, because the second act, the whole middle of the film just feels really short and rushed.
No, it goes through a lot of stuff in the second half quite quickly, to the point where you're like, wait, what, 2 years have passed, all this stuff's happened?
Yeah, it does it in like montages and just tells you everything, and there's relationships that just happen without seeing anything of it. This is where it feels like the most was cut from.
There's a lot of stuff where the narration just tells you something, and you feel like this should have probably been set up at some point and then paid off, and it is a case of they're fitting too much in one movie, and then they've taken that one movie and they've cut it down even further because they wanted to get close to 2 hours. I don't disagree with anything you've said. I'm not ignoring the problems. I just don't care. I love it anyway. I love it anyway. I love how it looks. I love how it sounds. The music's great.
Yeah, Toto, kill it. Yeah. That was when it got to the opening credits, and I saw, because it has the opening monologue before that, and you have a piece of music that's not by Toto. So it was that was Brian Eno, and that sounds it. And then you get to the credits and it says Toto, and I was like, oh, okay, I might like this.
Music's very good. Style's good. Everything looks great. And it's just kind of weird and offbeat, and I kind of like that about it. Like, the villain is a fat guy who floats because his suit lets him float. There's this weird kind of almost a Jean-Pierre Jeunet kind of influence on what's going on in terms of the visuals. I don't know, I'm getting kind of that vibe from it at times, but with this other, space opera-esque thing, and it gets absurd, it gets insane, and I don't know, I was kind of enthralled the entire time, regardless of the weirdness of it. I think, honestly, the opening 10 minutes might be the biggest...
like I said, those were a chore to get through. And then once I got through that, the opening act I really liked. I was proper into it. I was enthralled, like you say. And then it got to this second act where everything just felt really rushed and condensed, and that's where it lost me. I lost interest because it was just telling me these things instead of letting me experience any of it.
I was still enthralled, but I don't disagree. But it didn't affect me the same way it affected you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still like over half the film that I really enjoyed, and then I still enjoyed the second half, but not as much at all.
Yeah, because it's the second half though where it gets proper insane, and the insanity was keeping me.
It does, and those are the
it.
things that I like in it. Like there are bits I like in it. Like I say, I enjoyed it still, but because there was so much that I felt missing, like I was like, okay, why am I not seeing this? Where is this? It was making me think and question it, and it was taking me out of the experience.
All right, okay, so I think we'll move into spoilers then. So full spoilers from this point on for Dune, or Dune. So I feel like if I put too much of an emphasis on it, I sound like I'm saying June.
I think that's kind of our accent, so because I'd say June as well, and it almost sounds like June the month.
Yeah, which is why I'm sort of going the other way and going Dune, even though that's not what they say.
Yeah, it's. I think that's our accents that are hampering that one.
So the plot seems like a bit of a struggle to get to at first. There's a lot of elements to it.
Yeah.
And it's too much for one movie, honestly. But you can tell they've got the book, and they're like, all right, we're going to try and fit all this in. So not only do we have these different factions, we have the main faction, the Atreides, and we have the villainous faction.
Harkonnen?
Harkonnen, there you go. So you've got those two. You've got the Space Guild. Now they're the ones who sort of control the actual space travel, which in this universe is they use the space to instantly they fold the universe in itself, kind of like space-time, timey-wimey stuff, and it makes them teleport instantly to other parts of the universe. So we've got them, and then we've got the Emperor and his people, who control everything. And that right there's probably the first thing that feels like it's lacking when you watch the movie, is that the Emperor, after the opening scene, we don't see the Emperor again for like another 90 minutes. He's gone. Yeah. For a long, long time.
See, and this is where I'm okay with that for a while, because he's still referenced. He still feels like, oh, he's a threat. He's got power. He's like, oh, the Emperor could come. The Emperor could do this. So I don't need to see him that much, I don't think. Do you not feel like they kept referencing him like, oh, the Emperor, his men, and like I always felt like he was in the background even though he wasn't on screen.
I guess. See, my problem with that though is that it made it feel like what was the gingers' names again? Harkonnens. Yeah, too many names in this movie. The Harkonnens. It really felt to me the entire movie setting them up to be the main villains. Like they're the arch nemesis. They're the things we need to beat at the end. But then in the last act, it's like, no, the Emperor shows up. No, he's the big bad. He's the one we need to beat. And I didn't get that feeling the whole movie.
Yeah, okay. I can see where you're coming from.
The whole movie, it felt like, no, the Harkonnens are the villain of this movie. And at the end, it's like, oh no, it's the Emperor's the big bad you actually have to fight at the end. The Harkonnens just kind of get dealt with in the course of things happening. They're not actually... Because one of the things is the character... You've got the head Harkonnen, the Baron, who's kind of disgusting. He's got the warts on his face and all that, and he's kind of the head honcho there. And then he's got his two nephews, the sort of fatter one who he puts in charge once they take over the planet. And... the guy who, funnily enough, halfway through the movie I said, you know, this guy really reminds me of Sting. Then we got to the credits, it was Sting.
Yeah.
And he, it felt like he especially, his entrance was like really, like when they first walked in, the music got dark and it was like, oh, these are the proper henchmen that are going to go and fight like Kyle MacLachlan's character.
And they never really do.
And no, they never really do anything. I mean, he fights him at the end. There's like a knife fight after the main thing goes down. But at this point, Kyle MacLachlan's already become God. And
yeah, it's kind of irrelevant by that point, isn't it?
And the fight's like meaningless because we know he's going to win at that point. And it's just kind of, it's weird that you build him up so much and then it's like, no, that's not what we're really fighting at the end. And that was one of the things that I felt was really... And it's funny because they're doing a new reboot of this. They're doing a new film series. And I think Denis Villeneuve is... I don't know if he's confirmed to be directing it yet or if he's just in talks, but he's in line to direct.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be multiple movies. And the funny thing is I was watching this, I was like, I can clearly see what the first movie is.
Yeah.
The first movie's Act 1.
Yeah. It's up to the point where he meets the tribe. and kind of more or less.
I don't even know if I'd go that far.
No, go a little bit earlier.
I would say your final big thing in the movie is like them coming out of the planet and taking over. I think most of that first movie, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do, but this is how I would split it up based on what I've seen in this. Most of that first movie should be there might be someone going to betray us, and you'd see more of the other factions like talking about trying to like take them over, and you'd get more of a sense of that. Because one of the big problems of the movie is that it brushes past all these different factions so much, and like we say, we don't see the Emperor again for a long time. The Space Guild you don't even see again till right near the end either.
To the point where we were like, oh, that was the Space Guild.
Yeah, we weren't sure of who was who to an extent, and there was all these different elements that didn't get introduced. And then another thing is when MacLachlan's character does meet, when he meets the Fremen, and they make this quick deal, because part of the plot is that all through the movie he's like having these visions of the future, and he might be the chosen one, which is another big aspect of the plot that we've not even mentioned yet. That's introduced. That's
how the film opens.
There's a group of characters who are all telepaths, and they're all female, and they all drink from this water of life. And apparently, any man who tries to drink it dies. But there's a place in this power of this water that they drink that they can't go to. But the legend says that one man will be able to drink it and survive, and he will be able to go there, and he will get this ultimate power. And Kyle MacLachlan might be the chosen one. He might be the one that goes to this place and is the saviour of Dune. He might be him. So that's the thing.
It's literally how the movie opens, and we didn't mention it.
Right, so not only could you do more of that, if this whole thing's just one movie, and you sort of tease that a bit more, and you can make it more subtle, like it just let it build.
Interestingly, I don't think I'd go subtle. I'd lean into the Shakespearean Macbeth side of it, because it is very Macbeth. It's there's like the guild telling us, like, you got to kill the sun because it's the sun you got to look out for, and you got this prophecies, and they're kind of like the witches and.
Well, whatever, sure, but there'd be more of it. You'd build up more of it,
yeah.
Right? Regardless of how you tackle it, you build up more of it. The other thing, though, that when he meets the Fremen, right, he is like, "I will teach you our ways to fight," and he pulls out the thing that we've seen him use once. There's a training,
a little training thing at the start.
There's a training scene at the start where we see him use this like magnetic gun thing, where it like kind of doesn't even have like a beam; it just shoots and it kind of works.
Yeah.
And they make a big deal when he meets the Fremen that he trains all of them. And by the way, where did they make all these guns? Because they all have them. Like there's like hundreds of them with these guns.
Don't ask.
Yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But this is the thing. He's like, yeah, we'll teach you our ways of fighting. I'll train 100 of your warriors, and your 100 warriors will train the thousands of more of you. And then he starts training them, and he makes a big deal like, oh yeah, this is your hardest stone. And they try hit it, they kick it, they try and cut it with a big laser blade thing.
Tells them to shout at
it. And then he just like blasts it, and I'm like, you didn't really set up that
was that powerful.
Yeah, I mean, see, when he was using it earlier in the movie, I never really got the sense that it was like some specific thing.
I didn't either. I just thought it was, it's training day, because we see it around the time where he does the shield training thing.
Yeah, the shield. Which is a very weird visual effect, mate.
It was. And so because we saw it next to that, it felt like, okay, these are just the commonplace things. It's like, rite of passage, the equivalent of learning to sword fight in a fantasy film. That's the sort of feeling I got from it. And then it got to this, it's like, oh, that was a big special thing.
Yeah, it felt like a training device, not an actual... And even if it is an actual weapon, it didn't feel like a special thing. It just felt like normal. When
he gets to that bit, he's talking about how you have to use your voice and shout with the weapon. And it's like, okay, didn't get any of that earlier on.
No. Well, this is kind of what I'm talking about, where there's stuff that it should set up and then pay off because you've teased it earlier on, and it doesn't do that. It just tells you things. And I think it's a symptom of, well, we've got so much crap, and you're never going to understand any of it if we just don't tell you. We don't have time to introduce everything. Some stuff is introduced and it pays off, but a lot of it's just told. Luckily enough, I found the whole like world kind of fascinating.
Maybe I agree.
Maybe it's because I like science fiction. I don't know, but the characters seemed interesting. It helps that you have a lot of good actors playing a lot of the roles. Patrick Stewart's in there. Max von Sydow's in there. What's his name? Jürgen Prochnow is in there. He's Kyle MacLachlan's father. Sean Young's the I guess we'll call it the love interest, who's part of the Fremen or Fremen, Fremen or Fren. Fremen. They spend some time building this, and they build the idea that he might be one of the telepath ladies. Does a test with him in a box where it tests his like telepath pain threshold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though it's like his hand, it's just imaginary. So I think it's just a telepath thing. It's just
yeah. It's like put your hand in the box. You can't see it, and it's like, oh, okay, it's gonna hurt because it looks like his hand's kind of melting.
Yeah. Here's some imaginary pain.
Yeah.
So they go to Arrakis, and they Arrakis. Too many names. And
they're not simple names either.
They're not simple names. And on top of that, like you said, there was a lot of other names for other places that we never even went to. Like, it cut to like the planet where I've forgotten the bad guys' names already.
Harkonnens.
The gingers. There's an army of gingers. They're ginger species. Jokes on that later. So we cut to their planet once. We cut to the planet of the guild one. You know, we cut to a few places. It comes up with the title cards, and you go there like maybe once, but it's not a big deal.
And that would have been fine. Like, that's all you'd have needed. Just, the title card as you go there. But instead, we got it in that monologue at the start.
To be fair, it wasn't actually in the monologue, really.
It was in the bit after, was it?
It was in the bit after
on the screen.
It was in the bit after on the screen because the monologue, which is the face in space, was just explaining the people in the space.
Yeah. I think it was the bit right after. You're right.
I think the space is the important part there. You have to explain the space and the fact that everyone needs it and what it's used for. I think that was the part they had to get across at the opening.
Absolutely.
To understand what the hell everything was about. So they go to the planet. So him and his dad and his mum, and he's worried that his dad's going to get killed and whatnot. And they go up in their ship. We see the whole space travel thing, and they go to Arrakis, and we see them meet up with other people there. The Fremen all have their these like bright blue eyes, and it turns out that if you're there on the planet long enough, your eyes will go the same way. It's part of just being there. And we learn that it was mentioned a couple of times, but we see like firsthand they go out, they're flying out over the desert, and we see that there's these giant, huge worms that. Yeah. And we keep getting these. And this is the thing. It keeps cutting back to Kyle MacLachlan having these like daydreams, and he's like thinking about things, and he's talking about the space and the worms and how are they connected, and do they protect the space and all that kind of. I'm not gonna lie, I was about to start laughing because every so often it would cut to him and we'd hear the monologue inside his head going, the space. He says the phrase "the space" a lot in this movie. Yeah. A lot.
Can you imagine how many times it would have been if it had been the full 4-hour version?
Well, no, because technically the 4-hour version wouldn't have the monologue. And
it wouldn't have the monologue, but they'd have fit it in elsewhere.
Maybe.
They'd have to, because they have to portray how important the spice is.
The space is very important. There's a lot of big ideas in the movie that I don't think quite actually... Or there's a lot of big ideas in the story that don't quite make it into the movie. I can see it kind of prodding at them. Like the idea of him being this chosen one and he has to protect the space, and the space is connected to the worms, and the telepaths are all based from the space, and all this stuff. I feel like there's so much there that's probably in the book, because the book's probably quite dense, I imagine.
Probably.
It feels like it's a dense book. I mean, this is why maybe a trilogy will probably work out better for it.
Even maybe 2 films could do it.
It'll be a trilogy.
Probably, because that's the thing now, isn't it? Go for the trilogy. Have the 3.
It's been a thing for a long time now, to be fair.
It is, but even if it hadn't been, it's like, well, why not?
I can definitely see it's 3, because you have the first one ends with the actual siege, and like, you know, the Duke, which is obviously Kyle MacLachlan's father is the Duke, and he's the son of the Duke. Him being killed and them all like taking over the planet. That's when you sort of end the first movie, more or less. Second movie, when that ends, I'm not as entirely sure, but they skip over this 2 years where he like becomes a protector of the land and he's training all the people, and like really the second movie should be him like actually doing the journey of the chosen one.
I think the second movie ends where they fully accept him and he rides the worm.
Oh, we've not got to the worm raiding yet.
No.
We were talking about that.
But that's kind of the point where it's like, okay, he is this thing.
Yeah. No, that's what the second movie should be. That it should be the journey of him actually becoming the chosen one, or he is the chosen one, and it's him realizing he's the chosen one, and him actually becoming that
like, leader.
Yeah, becoming the leader. Yeah, and becoming
that whole
legend.
2 years that we see in about 12 seconds.
Yeah, that should be what the second movie would be, and it would fully explain his relationship to the people, the relationship to his love interest, who, I shit you not, he keeps, admittedly, he sees it a few times in his visions before he even gets to the planet, right? So that is there, but he gets there, him and his mother, like, you know, the ship crash lands that they're on with the two baddies and the two gingers. I'm just going to start calling them gingers. The bad guys from henceforth are the gingers.
Yes.
Right? And they land and they're sort of running away, and they run away from the worm that's chasing after them. They use the thumpers, is what they call it, the sort of the pulsing beacon that sort of, because the worms are attracted to like noise and vibrations, so that the pulsing beacon keeps that away from them. They run into the Fremens, and he sees this girl, this woman that he's been seeing in his visions, and there's a bit of narration in his head, bit of monologue, where he's like, "Oh, it's her from my visions. She's so beautiful." Fine. That's fine. Couple of scenes later, he walks in a room, she's there, and they start kissing.
I'm pretty sure this is the next scene that they have together.
Oh, it is, yeah. It's the next scene they have together. It's in the middle of the montage, because I think it's... I think
it's right at the start of the montage.
Yeah, it's before it says there's a 2-year gap, I think. But they start kissing, and then after the 2-year gap, she's like, oh, it says, has great love for her. And it's like, alright, so that all happened. So this is where I'm pretty sure they've cut out a lot of footage.
That was one of the first moments where I was like, oh, okay, that got slashed. Because it was just like, we should have seen the start of that relationship. Like, we should have seen them speak at least once before they started kissing. You know?
Do we even see them speak after? Do we even see them speak after it?
It's a good point, we might not.
I don't know if we do.
We definitely don't until... There's definitely no speaking until at least after the 2-year gap. Maybe there's a little bit after that. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure, though.
Let's go back before the 2-year gap, though.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the most epic scene in movie history, where he rides a goddamn giant worm.
It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And this is what I mean about being sort of enthralled by everything that's going on, and just the audacity of what the movie is. Because he climbs up the side of the giant worm, and he's like he spikes in a rope one end, hooks it around the other bit of the worm, and I'm like, he's going to ride that worm like it's a horse almost with the rope.
Yeah, it's like reins, aren't they?
Yeah, and this is the first time because the music's obviously, there's hints of the main theme throughout, but this is when it properly kicks in. Like the first time you properly hear the chanting come in, and it's like full force.
First time you have like the electric guitars as well, because before it was all the synthy stuff.
Yeah,
and then the guitars come in for this, and it's like, oh yeah.
And the synthy stuff, well, it's the main theme. It's quite a moody version of the main theme. It feels kind of dark. It feels like it's brooding, but then this is like, no, this is the heroic.
It's like actiony stuff, isn't it? Yeah.
You know, the Fremen guy jumps up as well, and they're both on top of the worm, and they're sort of nodding, like, yeah, we're riding the worm. And they're like, yeah, they're riding a goddamn worm.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That stuff was awesome.
And it was so ridiculous and over the top. I loved every second of it. I was fully on board for this. Oh, dear. But like we said, there's lots of stuff that isn't set up properly, and they just tell us. And it does kind of deflate the final battle stuff, because it feels like everything comes towards them, and it's like, alright, we've trained everyone, so now groups of us are going to raid several giant worms as the ships of all the villains are coming in, and we're going to use all of our mag weapons that I've made for everyone somehow with materials from somewhere, and you know, kill tons and tons of people. He runs into Patrick Stewart as well.
Just kill all the gingers. Because
Patrick Stewart is like one of the heads sort of the army or whatever of the Duke, and he gets separated during the initial kind of takeover. And then he runs into him like 2 years later. The 2-year gap happens, and he runs into Patrick Stewart. And Patrick Stewart, who's still bald at the top, but he's like hair at the back's all grown, so he's got that sort of Hulk Hogan-esque kind of look going for him. And yeah, so he joins his army, and he inspires people. He gives speeches to the thousands of Fremens, and they're like, we're going to protect, and we're going to stop the spice from going out, and we're going to protect it. It's going to change the planet's...
Yeah, it's going to change everything. Because the whole thing is that there's no rain on this planet.
Yes, but we see when he's introduced to them, they take him into the underground like caves or whatever, and we see that they've got like pools of water.
decaliters.
Decaliters was the word they used.
Yeah.
Decaliters.
I remember it because it was like, wow, they use decaliters.
Just say a lot of water. Don't be a dick.
I know.
Decaliters. Dear. I feel it's funny because we've actually skipped over some stuff. We haven't even talked about the traitor. You know, the doctor who's like the head doctor of the Duke's sort of like empire. Yeah. He betrays them. He's working, and it turns out that he's only betrays them because he wants to get the Duke close to the Baron, so that he can sacrifice himself. Which, bit of a dick move. Ask first.
Yeah, pretty much.
Bit of a dick move. And it goes wrong because he's hallucinating or whatever when he's supposed to assassinate the Baron, and he ends up assassinating he's like henchman instead.
Because of course.
So the Baron's okay, but no.
Baron's got to be okay. You got to have that floating ginger.
Gotta have the ginger. I like the look of their planet, by the way.
Yeah.
It was proper different because like the Duke stuff was all sort of gold and very sort of regal looking, but then you go to his planet and it's like cyberpunk. There's lots of water and it's like dark and grimy.
Yeah, I did like
with
seeing
green.
all the different places. It would have been nice to see them a bit more on their own turfs and get to know like what their societies individually were like.
I feel like a trilogy.
No, I agree, and that's something that is not indicative of any cuts. That's just something that you can't fit into one movie, no matter how long that would have been.
Yeah, I feel like again, I feel like splitting up into 3 and actually exploring everything and naturally letting us learn everything so that we understand the universe rather than just throwing it all at us would make for a much more interesting movie. Because
we're just kind of told which society is which and who's the good guys and the bad guys, but I don't really know why. That said, though, I think this has a charm to it. I think there's a charm to this. I'm not arguing that. I'm into it. I was like, obviously the first 5-10 minutes were really confusing because it was throwing so much at us and I couldn't understand it. Once it got going, though, once we got to hand testing and all that sort of area, and then it kept going, and we got to them going to the planet and flying over and seeing the giant worms, I was just really into it by that point, and it never kind of let up. Even though I acknowledge every single problem it has, every single thing that's missing, every single thing that's not set up that should be set up, and it is a mess. It's an edited together mess. I'm pretty much with it up until the 2-year gap, and that's where it loses me. But I still like bits that come after it. But as a thing, as like an entire entity, that's where it loses me. Because obviously Kyle MacLachlan like wins this war and he comes in and gives his speech and it's meant to feel like this big moment. He's now the chosen one and all that. And I'm like, this would have worked better if we'd actually seen him go through this. Yeah. Yeah, because it's like you see him do the one training session and then it's like, and pretty much he's the leader. It's like, you know, that's pretty much where it jumps to. Yeah, everyone just kind of goes along with them. They believe he's the chosen one, and that's just. It's like, okay, we get that you're powerful because you're doing this new stuff. That's what you're teaching them, but it doesn't feel like he earned his role as a leader. But I still kind of loved it. I kind of don't care. I definitely liked it, but I didn't love it. I don't know. I just there's something so unapologetic about those electric guitars coming in as he's riding a giant goddamn worm. Oh, that is definitely the standout moment of the film. That I just can't think too badly of it. I can appreciate that. It's a mess, but it is a glorious mess. It is. It is a magical, glorious mess that I will rewatch. I'll probably watch the extended cut at some point just to see what the extra bits were. Because you just want to know. I'm curious. Yeah, like I've seen it the sort of the more Lynchian way. I now want to see it the extra stuff to see what was missing, to see if it did fill in some of that stuff, or did it make the first act, which is just over half the movie, even longer? Like, because that definitely feels like the part that's been the least cut. That whole first act, for the most part, yeah. I mean, there's little bits here and there, but overall, it feels more intact than any other part of the film. I can't imagine if that is just the bits that they've added back in, those bits from the first act that are cut, and they've just made that longer. Oof, that's going to make it a little bit more of a chore. I couldn't actually recommend it to anyone. I don't think. I think there's a very narrow overlap where people will really like this, like I have. Yeah. I think you have to like 80s movies, you have to like science fiction,
and you have to like a bit of weirdness, and you have to be willing to not care about a few things. But if all those things align,
If you're one of those 12 people worldwide.
hey, no. There is an avid audience for this movie. I remember when Blu-ray first became a thing. I remember seeing tons and tons of people like, "Where's Dune? When's Dune coming out?"
Okay, stand corrected.
There is an avid fan base for Dune. It's definitely a cult fan base. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but it's avid. It exists. And I've always been trepidatious about trying it because I knew it was seen as a mess by a lot of people. You know, most of the critics at the time bashed it, hated it, 1 star, all that kind of thing.
For good reason. I mean, I think 1 star is a bit harsh, but
1 star is harsh. But that said, I will take this over so much that comes out today. So much.
yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it's interesting. And it has him riding a worm.
It's vastly interesting. I like this more than, I don't know, what came out recently that would, like Doctor Strange. I mean, Doctor Strange, yeah, sure, it's more of a cohesive movie, but it's off an assembly line. There's no.
I'd probably agree though. I probably enjoyed this more than this. I like Doctor Strange. Don't get me wrong, it was fine.
It's fine, yeah, but it's like it feels like another Marvel movie. There's no heart in it.
There's so much that like. The whole origin being just Tony Stark again.
Yeah, but you look at this, and sure, it might have not worked out perfectly, but you can tell there was a vision there. He was going for something. He was trying to do something insane.
Oh, I'm not arguing any of that. Like I say, I think it falls apart, but I don't think it's his fault. I think it is clearly just the edited. I think there are things that you could fix even more by making it a trilogy or 2 films, even like we said, like just seeing these people in their society and understanding the world better before it's just all about the spice. Getting to know why the spice is so important, really, and understanding it instead of just going, spice important, you know.
Well, that's something else you'd probably see more of in the first movie if it was a trilogy.
Yeah.
And you'd build it up. You'd see what exactly gets used for. You'd see more of the Space Guild, what exactly they do, how important they are to the. Because even though we're told it's like the most important substance in the universe, we don't really see what would happen if it wasn't there. We don't really get a sense of the stakes.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. There's things that you just couldn't fix doing it in one movie. So I can respect where cuts at that stage have been made because you have to. But overall, like I say, there is style.
The style, it looks fantastic. Technically, I think it's obviously because it's the early 80s. There's some effects that don't hold up particularly well.
Shields.
The shield effect is really weird. I don't know.
It's like this 2D animation that's just placed on top of it.
Yeah. That said, though, I did like the whole idea that it only works against fast stuff. Like if you move a blade in slowly, it'll go through. I actually kind of like that. Yeah. I think that's a cool idea. But I'll say this: I would much rather. I am much more fascinated by a failure with heart than I am just a sort of cookie cutter.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's definitely, as interesting is definitely a word you use to describe this that you can't use to describe Doctor Strange, for example. And that's something, isn't it?
Yeah. We're picking on Doctor Strange a lot. It was just the first example I could think of.
It was, but Doctor Strange it's not Doctor Strange we're picking on. It's just it typifies a lot of modern blockbusters.
Yes. Very few blockbusters that come out these days are as interesting as Dune. I think the main examples I would go to maybe like the Nolan movies are interesting. Like you watch Interstellar.
Yeah.
Regardless of what your opinion is on that movie, you watch that, you go, oh, someone was behind this with an idea. They were trying to do something crazy and wacky, and they had these.
This is what it is. This is the difference where this feels like someone's idea versus it's a studio idea.
Yes.
Now, obviously, this you can go, well, the studio came in and ruined it, but you can see the core person's idea there behind it. Whereas a lot of these movies that we're talking about, like Doctor Strange, is just studio from the start.
Which is a weird thing to say because obviously the new movies will be.
They will.
From a studio standpoint. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to feel like that, though.
No, it doesn't. No. So some feel like it's they give the director and the writers enough room to do what they want. They have faith in their talent, and even though it's studio mandated, if they put enough faith in the talent, there's still the vision comes through. Marvel movies specifically a lot of the time don't feel like that to me.
Yeah, they feel formulaic.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've got a feeling Star Wars is going to feel like that as well. It's harder to say just now because it's only been 2. But,
there's not been enough to tell. Yeah, it might end up being that way. It might.
But because I felt that way with Rogue One, I thought that was soulless.
Yeah, I felt differently about that, but we're not getting into that here.
That's because you have Star Wars rose-tinted glasses on.
Possibly.
But I that felt soulless to me. That felt like it just existed for. We want a Star Wars movie out this Christmas, and
no, that's fair.
And whereas as much as obviously every movie's from a studio perspective is made for money reasons, and that's why they're green lit. But that's not why directors make films. It's not why they get into it. Well, maybe not. Maybe some of them. Brett Ratner, I'm pretty sure, only exists because he wants a paycheck.
That's fair. And like I said, that's the difference between a studio movie and a director's movie. It's where obviously all movies are studio movies. Well, yeah, all blockbusters at least. But there's the ones that have faith in the talent that they've hired to do their thing, and that's why they've hired them in the first place. Whereas others will hire someone just because they can tick the boxes. Yes.
A workman director, I use the term typically for that. I like Dune a lot, actually.
I like it less than you did, but it's not bad.
It tickled a lot of things I like, and it's been a while since I've been able to watch a sci-fi movie from this era with matte paintings and miniatures and all that, the optical effects. Like, obviously, I've seen most of the good sci-fi movies from this era because I just have. I've seen them growing up. I mean, they're not new anymore. It's actually kind of nice to find one again that I've not seen.
Yeah.
And be like, oh man, this looks great. Like, it's been a while since I've watched a movie with this kind of stuff in it for the first time. Damn cat.
Nearly made it the whole way through.
Yeah. Alright.
Yeah.
That's Dune. So
gonna have the music stuck in my head all night, I can tell you that.
Oh yes. Yes. Very, very, very good music. Excellent style. And great cast.
Yeah, definitely.
For all the problems with it, the script. Well, I don't know if the script was a mess. It's hard to tell if the script was a mess first because we can't tell because the edit's it's chopped a lot of it out of it. But there you go. That's Dune. Let us know what you think of Dune in the comments below if you've seen it. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. It helps us out a lot if you do. And we'll be back next week with another movie.
Hopefully riding a worm.
I don't believe there's any worm riding in next week's movie, but it is a much more popular, well-known film, which people will likely have seen. Yeah. So we're doing a classic next week, is what I'm saying. But yeah, let us know what you thought of this one. And I've got a feeling that we will be doing another David Lynch movie before the end of the month. Because
surprise to me.
Well, I know that you happen to be planning on watching one before the end of the month, so we may as well do an episode out of it as a bonus.
But does that not break our rough rules of timings? You just want an excuse to watch the film again, don't you?
The cut-off is now 2001, not 2000.
You just want an excuse to watch it again.
Yes. But no, that's it. That's doing it, guys. So thanks very much for watching, and keep watching movies. We'll see you next time.